The British government's significantly stricter test rules for travellers make the airlines desperate. In an open letter, airline bosses complain about disproportionate restrictions and demand economic help. Above all, one rule should fall quickly. So, British Airlines have condemned the new test regime for travellers as arbitrary and disproportionate. We understand the need to take steps to contain the initial effects of the Omicron variant, but the travel industry has been penalized with disproportionate restrictions, said an open letter from British Airways chief executives and from Virgin Atlantic, Ryanair, and EasyJet. In addition, the aviation bosses want to meet with government representatives. TUI, Loganair, Jet2, and the industry association Airlines UK have also signed the letter. Further pre-departure and post-arrival testing clearly offers little added value in protecting against COVID, but it makes Christmas harder for families and businesses, while also seriously damaging the UK travel industry, the letter continued. Well, in order to limit the rapid spread of the Omicron mutation, which was first detected in southern Africa in late November, all travelers arriving in the UK must book a PCR test before entering the country. Until a negative test result is obtained, they must remain in quarantine at home. Until recently, an antigen test on the second day after entry was sufficient. There was no quarantine requirement. Even stricter rules apply to visitors from 11 African countries that the government has put on a so-called red list. Only British citizens and anyone with a permit in the country are allowed to enter. They have to spend the first 10 days in a quarantine hotel for £2,285 per stay. Industry representatives are calling for all test regulations for fully vaccinated people to be dropped by December 20th at the latest. The government has announced a review of the current rules for this date. The proportion of diseases with the Omicron variant is increasing rapidly in the country. On the third Sunday of December, 1,898 new cases were reported, almost 3 times as many as the day before. It is taken for granted that the mutation has long since spread across the country without any connection to travelers. In addition, the heads of the airlines are calling for a package of tailor-made economic support measures to be introduced immediately in order to bridge the crisis in the industry. An extension of the outstanding COVID loan is being discussed, as is a new furlough offer for the industry. Finance Minister Rishi Sunak first introduced this type of short-time work in the country at the beginning of the pandemic. The program expired at the end of September. Now, almost 2 years after the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, aviation is one of the particularly hard-hit industries. After several waves of infections around the globe, combined with new restrictions for travelers, the airlines have only slowly recovered since the summer. In the third quarter, Lufthansa and Air France KLM made a small profit for the first time since the introduction of the first lockdown a year and a half earlier. Ambitious austerity programs and significant cuts in the number of employees also helped. Now the airlines fear another major setback, especially at the turn of the year, which is traditionally a particularly important time for travel bookings. The heads of the airlines write that consumer confidence has been massively undermined by the new test regime of all times during the period in which around 30% of ticket purchases are made. Not only airlines are complaining about the strict regulations for a long time. Entertainment and hospitality industries are seeing the first delicate signs of recovery just as abruptly ended. Theaters fear burglaries of up to 50%. No, it's not burglaries, it's losses. For smaller independent stages, the end of the year is also by far the busiest time of the year. For days, restaurants have reported a downright wave of rejections from Christmas parties. Retailers also assume that more people will switch back to online purchases instead of strolling through the shopping streets. That is why there have been numerous calls for additional government support in the past few days. The British economy is starting the winter much less strongly than hoped. In October, growth was a disappointing 0.1%, according to data from the Statistics Agency. The recovery upswing had already stalled before the outbreak of the Omicron variant. Many companies would feel like they were in a loop, said Suren Thriru, an economist with the UK Chamber of Commerce. Renewed pressure on consumer confidence will inevitably have an impact on sales, and in the last quarter this should completely slow down economic growth. It feels like a cemetery here, said Philip Miller, head of Adventure Island Amusement Park and Sea Life Adventure Aquarium in Southend-on-Sea on the Thames estuary. He told that to The Guardian. Bookings for a visit to Santa Claus, a typical family tradition in the run-up to Christmas, would be 50% lower than 2 years ago, Miller complains. I talked to my employees about sending them home, he said. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.